So back again here in this format on your YouTube with a cappuccino. That has already gone a little bit too cold. I waited with drinking it, but no matter what, it's good. So I want to tell you a little bit more about my life story, a little bit more about who I am and how I ended up here on your YouTube feed talking English in a microphone, talking about emotions, feelings, fears, thoughts, like pretty deep subjects, also spiritual things. Um, it's a bit random. It's a bit of a big switch from where I came from. Came from more of a space of like trying to make money and things like that. But I'll tell you my life story today because if you want to understand my message more, you also have to understand who I am. And I have to get out of my comfort zone just to put my life out there on the internet and be like, fuck it. This is just who I am. And I just come here on your feed. Also with everything I am. So also when I'm not feeling great, I come here. And also when I'm not feeling motivated, I come here and talk. Because that's the key. For me, the key is what I realize is like consistency is super important. Consistency is like the main driving factor for your success. So if I come on here and I only come on here when I feel good, I come on here maybe 2 times a week and I'm not consistent enough. If I come on here every day, sometimes maybe I don't feel inspired or motivated or energized or in my best form and in my best shape, and I cannot be waiting for the perfect circumstances to happen in order to produce input, to produce output, to wait until the perfect circumstances, because it's going to be lacking in the consistency, and the consistency is everything. So I'm going to be more consistent. I'm going to be uploading today. I didn't feel like it. I was like, fuck, I don't feel inspired. What am I going to talk about? And I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to talk about my own life so you understand me, you understand my message more, because it's a bit of a random big switch I've been going through, and I'll tell you from the beginning. So because like 3-4 years ago I was not like this at all. I wasn't busy with thoughts, with emotions, with spirituality, I was busy with self-improvement, but not like these types of content I talk about. I was drinking a lot, 3 times a week. I was just going out to parties, directionless. I was running a business, but it was just purely for the profit, for the money. So I was handling my life in a way, but I was not where I am today. I was not feeling as safe in myself, as confident, as authentic as well, you know? So how did I end up here? Well, to understand who I am and to understand why I'm busy with all the things I'm busy with, such as breathwork, such as healing, such as all subjects I talk about, you have to understand why I talk about it and what I've been going through. And it all started in kindergarten, or I don't know what the name is in English, but like when I was like 10 years old, let's say, when in the lower school. And I always had the fear of choking. So I always had the fear that I thought I was going to choke. And this was so intense that sometimes I would be like, I would really think that I would choke. So I wouldn't eat a lot of food naturally. I wouldn't eat fish because I thought I was going to choke in the little bones. And that went on, and it wasn't super active, but it was like I noticed it, right? I was always the fucking skinny kid because I didn't eat that much. And then eventually, when I was 14 years old, I was in a city with 2 friends I met on like a camping, and then we were like, let's smoke a joint, smoke a joint. And they bought a big 1.2 gram weed joint, pure, and we smoked it with the 3 of us, and the second guy was like, I'm gonna stop after like 5 hits, and then we finished the joint with the 2 of us, like so high. We were so high. I weighed like, maybe I told you already, but like weighed like 41 kilograms, super skinny, and I got hit so hard. I was so fucking high, and I was in my head, and I was tripping a little bit, and I was like, what is going on? And then we went to the supermarket, and I remembered that I bought a donut. I ate a donut, and then I thought I choked in the donut. Well, I didn't choke, but I thought I choked. And at that moment, I had like my first full-on panic attack. ambulance came. People called ambulance. People were sitting around me. I was like coughing, and I was like, I'm going to die. And I remember at that moment so strongly that I thought I was going to die. That I saw, like, I don't know, I was so scared of that. I felt such a fear of dying, and it was so intense, and it was like there was nothing else at that moment. I was convinced that I was going to die. And people could tell me, you're not dying, you're not choking, but it didn't really work, because I really was convinced that I was dying. And that was my first real struggle or appointment with the fear of death. Came to my door when I was high. So it was fucked up. And then after that, I really thought I choked on that almost. So I really believed that. I really believed the thoughts that I was choking, but I didn't even know what thoughts were back then. So I was like, well, fine. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat anything, because if I don't eat anything, I'm not going to choke. So then I already started forming the belief. I'll tell this in retrospect. In this moment, I didn't realize it at all. Tell this in retrospect, because it's like 7 years ago now. But I just started not really eating a lot. And then after that, out of nowhere, the panic attack started coming. I woke up in the middle of the night. Now I thought I was going to choke, and I told my mom, and I was like, fuck, man, I think I'm going to die. And then it started to get more intense, and in that time I would just have like these crazy panic attacks of like thinking I was going to choke. Also, when I would eat something, and then like 2 hours later, I would still think I was going to choke. It was all in my mind. So from the moment I would eat anything, my mind would fixate on the fact like, there's something stuck in your throat. You feel it? There's something stuck in your throat. And then this loop would form of like, you think there's something stuck in your throat, you feel if there's something stuck in your throat, and because of your anxiety, the feeling gets worse, and then it starts to get more, and you focus on the feeling, it gets worse. Oh, and then you think about all the bad things that can happen. So you see images in your head of how you're going to die right now, how you're going to choke, and like the most fearful images and videos start playing off in your head of how you're going to choke, basically choke to death and die, and this will be the end of your life. And I would think that basically, and it was pretty severe. So my life would be, I would wake up in the morning and I would think I would go to die. I would die, but not like in 10 years, but like right now. And I would be fighting against it. Oh, I don't want to die. And then the whole day would be like that until I went to sleep. It would start over again. And then every 2 or 3 days I would have like a panic attack. I remember a time that I would be screaming to my mom in like the living room, and it would be like, help, call the alarm number, call ambulance, because I'm dying, and I would run on the street like a maniac, like fucking crazy, I would get completely taken over by this force of like thinking I was going to die. And it was like, I was so helpless and alone in this. I had no idea what was happening, no idea. And I wouldn't really talk about it with friends because I didn't know how to talk about it. Like, I would think people were gonna think I was weird or was crazy. So what would I gonna say? Like, because I really thought I was going to die and that there was something wrong with me physically. I went to the doctor a few times also to check that out, because I was convinced that there was something wrong with me physically, and that I was that there would be a matter of moments that I would die. Like, so I was so convinced that these thoughts were true. I didn't really I didn't recognize them as thoughts at all. I just thought it was me, and that this was reality. This reality got so created unconsciously, and it was insane. It was really insane. I would lay in bed at night alone. I would be like, I hope this will be over once, because I didn't see an end in it. It was a dark time, and it caused me a lot of courage to talk about this dark time, because I feel like people, and myself in general, it's pretty difficult to talk about these subjects, because what I'm opening up is really like a life story. Especially people that know me that are watching this video, because you came here probably because I also did this on a story on my Instagram, and you know me personally. So it's like a lot of people didn't even know I was struggling with this for so long. Only like my real close friends know this. And they also had times with me where later I would smoke weed when I was like 15. And I would go insane. I would go crazy. I would think like, call an ambulance. Like, this was just a cycle that repeats, right? And then eventually I did EMDR therapy, a good therapy, for like to get rid of the symptoms for a little while. I wouldn't say it's the most effective in dealing with the problem itself, but EMDR therapy, if you don't know, it's just like you look into like a light, and it goes clicking, the light or the sound from the left to the right side of your brain, and then it transmits a frequency. It's just that the mind goes from the irrational to the rational part of the brain or something like that. I'm not really interested in like the chemical part of the brain and how it works. Like, honestly, that doesn't interest me at all. I don't think it's very useful to deal with your stuff to know how it works. If you know how to play football, it doesn't mean you can play football. If you just know how it works. So if you know how the mind works and the brain works, it doesn't matter. You are able to handle it. It's not about if you know how it works, but it can help. I did this therapy. It went away for a little while. I was 16. I was very relieved. Then I just had my teenage life, right? I was just drinking a lot, smoking a lot, having fun, partying, all this type of stuff, being in school, hating school, all this shit. Then I went to start a business, went into e-commerce, entrepreneurship 4 years ago, and it just so happened that a friend of mine said, like, let's try some LSD. And I'm not promoting any drug use in this video as a disclaimer before, I don't know, this video gets put offline or something. But my friend was like, let's take a high dose of LSD. I've done psychedelics before. I had some great experiences. I even had my first healing experience on LSD, where I was on LSD on a light doses in Costa Rica. And I would meditate on my own. I was with some friends on the beach, and we all had some time alone. We went to meditate, and I cried a lot because a realization of the situation with my dad just opened up, and I could cry of that, and I could really relieve that, and I felt great after that. So I had a good experience with LSD. And when my friend said in the Netherlands, like, let's try some high dose of LSD. He told me great stories. He had done it before. So I was like, let's fucking do it. So we went into his house. We took the LSD. We went bike to the dunes, like close to the beach, and we biked there, and it kicked in. It was fucking high dose, super high, and I got so anxious, and this entire pattern that I haven't felt for like 3 years came up again. And if you've ever done psychedelics, you know that it was pretty extremely high dose for me of psychedelics can do to you. Wow. I wasn't ready. I would never be ready. I don't know. Insane. And I got caught away, I thought. And I had the worst trip and the worst experience of my life. The worst of the worst of the worst. Well, I didn't die, but it was one of the worst things ever, basically. So I thought I was going to die in a scooter accident. Basically, I saw how I was dying in a scooter accident. So the trip started with like, I was like thinking about my gym, and I was thinking about my friends, and I was like, is this real? Is this who I am? And all these thoughts, and I was like, who am I? Who am I? And I asked my friends, like, who am I? They were like, you're Boris Thomas. And I was in this trip of like Boris Thomas, and I was in a completely different world. I wasn't there with them at all. And then out of nowhere, I saw I was sitting on my knees and dying in a scooter accident. So my head was completely open. It was like a hole in my head, and I saw blood pouring out all over my body. And I saw my scooter laying next to me. I saw we were laying on the road. Ambulance was standing there. Well, it was all not real, right? But I was completely in this dream state where I saw this, and it was so completely real. I saw my friends trying to help me, but I thought they were trying to calm me down because I was dying. I didn't know what was going on because I didn't even know I had taken LSD. I didn't even know who I was, what my life was. I had a complete trip, all the way, almost, right? Because I was still resisting it so hard. And then what happened? Yeah, it was super intense, honestly. It was super intense. If you ever had a bad trip on LSD or any type of substance, I have I have a link in this description. Maybe if you have had a bad experience on this, shoot in a call with me, because I really would like to speak with people on that, because I feel like it's one of the most intense things you can go through, man. Holy fuck. But after that, so that was the beginning of the trip, right? I was completely gone. I broke both of my hands, like in real life. So I was hitting the ground because thought I was dying. I broke both of my hands. Like this part of my hand is still like lower than my like my hand look way different now. So this part is like lower than this higher bone, especially on this side. They're very weird. Still a bit painful. Like 2 years later, I broke both of my hands. Well, not very painful, but I feel like it has been broken. I hit my friend, almost knocked him out, like here, boom, I was completely taken over, man. Ambulance came, police came, and I had this 6-hour trip where I thought I was going to die. I was pissing my pants. It was completely insane, psychotic trip. Well, fucking heavy. And then my dad came and picked me up, and he gave me a hug, and I got out of the trip a little bit. And then I was so weird then, because I felt like I was feeling good, feeling super good after the trip. I was like, oh, I'm so happy I survived. And my dad was like, what happened? And my mom was like, can you tell me anything that happened? And the only thing I could say was like, yeah, I was in this storyline, and I couldn't come further than that. And they were like, there's something weird with this guy. And then I noticed I was in like a psychosis, and I noticed that the next day, because I couldn't handle the realization of this bad trip. Couldn't handle it. So then the next day I started realizing it. I didn't sleep the whole night, and then at like 8 a.m. in the morning I was like, these memories started popping up again. Like, oh my god, I almost just like started to fight with like one guy of the ambulance, and I almost wanted to punch them, and like it's going insane. I hit my friend and I broke my hands, literally. My hands were super swollen. I had blood on my knees, like a few scar things. And it was fucked up, but I didn't realize it then how fucked up it was, because I just went back to work. Immediately 2 days after it, I was running my business, started to make working days of longer and longer and longer. 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. Started to work a new job in sales. Started a new business in recruitment in the sales, and it was all successful for the eye of people. I started launched a supplement brand. I launched another brand in another natural supplements. Worked with influencers. I learned a lot, and it was a good period also. I was in an office with friends of mine, and it was good, but I was in Thailand, and then like half a year after the trip I started realizing like, fucking hell. I almost died there, but the worst of all, because if my friend wasn't there and held me there, I would probably not be alive right now. But I just realized like how heavy the trip was, and then once the anxiety started coming back, like a half year later after the trip, I got back into the anxiety circle again. Just when I was 14, it came back, and it was almost even heavier. No, it was not heavier, but it was heavy. It was fucking heavy, but it was different. I wouldn't think I was dying all the time. I would just start resisting the thoughts of like I thought I was going to die, because I didn't really think I was going to die, but I still got in this headspace of like I've been in this before, but it doesn't go away, and I was so fighting it, resisting it. And then if you would diagnose me at the time with like something, I would be diagnosed probably with PTSD. I had all the symptoms of PTSD. I couldn't even sit on the couch for 2 minutes. It's quiet. I would go insane. And the reason I was working so much, so eventually I was just working so I would wake up at like 7:30, I would do my morning routine, I would do the cold shower, do all the self-improvement stuff. I would go to work on my business from like 8:30. My friend would pick me up at like 8:15. We had the office at 8:30. I would get picked up like at 12:30 with the car with my friends. When I was done with running the business, I would eat breakfast in the car, and then we would run to this door-to-door sales job where I would be selling internet memberships at the door all day from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then from 9 p.m. we started a little bit, we stopped always a little bit earlier or like at 9 p.m. And then we would go to the gym as quick as possible, get like a gym workout in, sometimes even in my regular clothes. Just came from the sales job, and in my regular clothes I would hit the gym. I wouldn't have time to go to the sauna, and then after that I would just go home. And I was so fucking, my brain was like boom, 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 firing all the time. I wouldn't have one quiet minute. I would just, and I was running away in work, right? Work was an escape mechanism for me because I couldn't handle how I was feeling, honestly. And I realized that later. I had so much trauma, to be honest. And to really realize that you have so much pain and trauma is a fucking heavy thing, man. Still sometimes things coming up and I'm like, fuck. It's been so much more heavy and so much more intense than I thought. And I think everyone has that to a certain degree. But let's continue. So I was working all day, all the time. And eventually I was on the couch at my mom's house and she was like, I'm gonna call you in sick for the next 2 weeks. You have to take a break. Because my mom is very supportive. She's a yoga teacher with spirituality, and you know, she's already doing it for 20 years. So she knows about things like healing, spirituality, and needing rest and all that type of stuff, you know. So it was very good that she said, okay, take a break right now. So I took a break from everything. I just stopped. I went back to therapy. Was a very shitty therapist, honestly. He didn't understand anything of my problems. He would just give me some solutions and videos to watch on the internet, and I was like, so there's a guy that clearly is struggling with his stuff. Maybe I'm getting a bit angry at him, and you're just gonna give him some links to some videos on the internet, and you're like, well, just watch this video and you're gonna be fine. And he charged like insane amounts. But also insane amounts because it wasn't valuable, right? I started another online coaching, like therapy, with a guy that was more helpful, guy I met in Mexico before. And so I was into therapy, and then I discovered breathwork. And honestly, that's what changed everything. That's what was like my first step to real healing. So I did a breathwork with the guy. My mom said, yeah, you should do a breathwork. She's done a breathwork once. I went to Amsterdam alone, out of the comfort zone, went to do a breath work, and I was there and I didn't know what to expect, and we were breathing and everyone was screaming and everyone was going crazy. If you've never done a breath work before and you're in there with your mind and you're judging everything, you're like, what the fuck is going on, man? What is this kind of horror? People are have exorcism here. People are screaming. But the thing is with this breath work, because you start breathing for like an hour straight, and these emotions that are like a lower vibrational frequency come up to the surface, because oxygen is the most natural high frequency there is. And if you start circulating this through the body, the lower frequencies start coming up to the surface. So it's a great way to release trauma and release these deep-rooted emotions. And a lot of ways we can do this is through shaking or through screaming or through crying. So it's like as if you're in a fucking what's the word, like an exorcist chamber or something, like a saw. I don't know, it's a bit extreme, but it was insane. And I was like, fuck, what am I doing? So the first time wasn't really wasn't that effective because I was in a lot of resistance. And then like another time somewhere, and then I would be able to cry a little bit. And then another time, and I was like, I went to Belgium for a breathwork retreat for a weekend. I booked a nice hotel with a sauna, and then I was like being able to cry a lot, and for the first time like break open this cycle of like ego and mind-dominated living, and I would be able to feel self-love for the first time. And that was pretty beautiful, that moment. In that moment I could completely let go of the fear and cry and be there for myself with self-love, basically, without needing to change anything, without needing to get rid of anything, and just feel like the presence of something higher, a surrender to something higher. And a lot of these things made me way more spiritual. And I don't want to use the term spiritual in a way of like, okay, I'm gonna wear these big necklaces with these big crystals, and I'm gonna get my big hole in my ear and wear a big earring and start washing my clothes only once a month and not showering. I'm sorry, that's a bit of a disrespect, but you know what I mean. Not that type of spiritual, but I felt like I had a connection with God. Honestly, if I tell you about it, I even had a spiritual awakening. It was on Awakenings, the festival. I'm gonna cut that one out. So this spiritual awakening, I will tell you about this in another video because this is fucking insane. And that changed me completely as a person. Completely. It made me way more... that's a subject for another time. Wow. That led to everything I'm doing right now. But let's set it aside for a minute. I did the breath work. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot to deal with my fucking stuck emotions, deep-rooted fears. Because most of the time we don't realize that the struggle in our head is actually coming from emotional pain we feel in the body. And this pain can be very intense, and it has to be processed also through the body. So that's why we do breath work. Because you have to channel these emotions through the body. And it cannot be channeled through understanding it through the mind. So therapy goes to a certain bottleneck, because if you keep talking about your problems and analyzing your problems, eventually it's just a maze here, just like a maze where you cannot get out, and you need to go to the next step, and it's also release these painful emotions through your body, through your breath. If you keep circulating the breath through the body, it's an amazing way to deal with what you're feeling, to let it out and to be with it. And it's an amazing tool. It's the best tool I've found. And it's also something I teach sometimes. I want to teach it more. I'm going to teach it more. And so this tool really helped me. And I did breathwork a lot. I did breathwork coaching. So I did spiritual awakening, where I'll tell more about in another video. Also, let me know in the comments or a private DM on Instagram if you would want to hear about the spiritual awakening story, because I'm wondering if people are interested in that. I hope so. So let me know if you would be interested in that and you'd be like, okay, that's a good thing to share. Let me know. But so I started getting better. I started using even weed therapeutically, and I'm very, very positive about this. So what I used to do, I used to smoke a weed joint alone, and I would go into like a warm bath, go under a warm shower, just take some time for myself, meditate, do a breath work. And man, weed really brings up shit to the surface for me. It brings up anxiety, man. Always when I used to smoke weed, I would get super anxious. I would have the most panic attacks on weed. And I noticed a pattern in me that if I would be under the influence of any type of drug, it would increase my anxiety, just like the LSD trip. You get completely taken over by these unconscious patterns, and if you would smoke weed, it's a bit of a light way to bring these patterns up the surface. I also tried microdosing. It also worked. A higher dose of shrooms also worked. So I do a little bit with psychedelics here and there. I don't want to get caught in the trap of smoking too much weed, because I've also had those type of periods and then I'm not effective anymore. And I'm not even being consistent with anything. So that's also a bit of a downfall, but I feel like I'm over that right now. And I used weed therapeutically. I did breath work. I also did just grounding in the sun, taking time. But the biggest key, what I learned from this whole process is like self-love. And I can feel it when I say it right now. It's like, when you can give yourself the love that you are good enough right now, nothing can influence that. Nothing. Nothing from the outside world can influence you if you love yourself. And if you love. Loving yourself is the same as loving in general. Because ultimately the self is everything you are. You don't have to love other people. If you love yourself, that will automatically transmute outwards internal first, external second. So love everything is easier said than done, because what I mean really with this is not loving the nice things. It's giving love and giving attention to the difficult things. And that's the message. Giving love and attention to the fucked up things, and the fucked up things you don't want to face. Wow. That's a process. And love yourself through that. That's the biggest self-improvement and self-transmutation, and that's the biggest self-improvement you can do. You can take 500 ice baths. It's not comparable to this. This will transform your life in such a way, because it will get rid of all the negative patterns you're not even aware of that you're doing right now. Maybe you have these negative patterns, because when I was in a place of a lot of fear and a lot of hate and self-hate and not self-love, and all these not being good enough and all these thoughts, I would be constantly stressed. I would be constantly anxious. My quality of living was extremely low. I would constantly forget all my things and be extremely forgetful and like sluggish. Is that a word? I don't know. No, not sluggish. I wasn't sluggish. Like that I would drop my bag somewhere, and 2 seconds later I would just forget where it is. So one time when I was really deep into this struggle with the fear and anxiety, and I was so heavy in my head, I would just go to the gym in the morning with my friends, and I would just walk into the changing room, and I would just put my bag on the bench, and I would walk to the lockers, and I would just start doing codes to look where my bag was. And I was like, what the fuck? Literally 20 seconds before that, I put my bag on the bench. How can I look where my bag is if I just came in the gym? It was such a trip. And I had these things all the time. I lost 4 pair of AirPods. I bought 3 new t-shirts, and I lost all of them in 2 months. I lost everything. I was just so clumsy. That's the word, so clumsy. And with my business, I was stressed all the time. I wouldn't produce quality work. I would just be running, and I wouldn't even make money. I thought I was making money, but I was just overstressed and overworked, and nothing worked. And my relationship with people wasn't nice, and I wouldn't even be able to relax. And it was just a messy time. And I was like, I could have done the routine perfectly, because we have this image in our head that if we have the perfect routine and the perfect diet, and if we go to the gym and if we live this perfect life, then we'll finally be good enough. But it's not this. If I would do this, I did this. I woke up early, I meditated, I took a cold shower, I did all these things, but I was struggling internally so much, and I was looking into the external world to fix this. This was not it. You could take 500 ice baths. You can go to the gym and get a good physique. I had a good physique back then also. So it was all not about the things that I thought it was about. And then I finally took a good look inwards, what I was really struggling with. And then I realized, wow, this is just an internal game of facing your fears and facing the things you're struggling with. And that's the real self-improvement. That's not even self-improvement. It's just like letting completely go of this old self and transforming and rising towards a completely new version of you that is built in trust instead of fear. I hope you guys realize the importance of this, honestly, because I've been in a self-improvement loop for 4 years, and all my friends were also. And it's great to be on self-improvement. I built a business. I don't want to say I have a great physique, but I have a good physique. I've improved a lot. I made money online. I traveled the world, so it's amazing. But please realize the number one importance: the mental aspect, the mental health. How are you feeling? You can have this amazing Bugatti in your garage, but if you're feeling like shit and if you're anxious all the time, it doesn't matter. So it's the quality of living, and the thoughts and emotions you are struggling with dictate the quality of living. So why not go to the root of it, solve this, improve your quality of living drastically, surrender to everything, let go of control, and live a life full of freedom, a life full of purpose, a life full of excitement, of not having these heavy loaded restrictions and boundaries on yourself, but living a life full of freedom, of joy, of creation. What do you want to create? What do you want to create in this world? Only when you are living from a place of peace and from a place of clarity, you can create really something valuable. And you can only focus on the long term if you feel safe enough in your body to focus on the long term. Otherwise, everything will be a quick cash grab for satisfaction. Um, so I hope you realize the importance of this, honestly. And I've just been ranting a little bit, but that's been my story, and I've still. So the question is, how do I integrate this now in my daily life? How I integrate this in my daily life. So I've worked through a lot of trauma. First of all, I think in the last year I cried so much, man, and I cried hard. I cried hard, and it helped me a lot that I have a girlfriend now who can support me in that. If you're watching, I really love you. Ooh. So that really helped me, man. Holy shit, that really helped me. Another thing that really helped me is breath work. So I do breath work every morning. I do a little meditation every morning. I really encourage you to start also breath work for longer sessions if you're struggling with emotions. I can facilitate that. I'm honestly not really the biggest fan of online breath work. I think in person is better, especially if it's for the first time. Just going to be transparent with you, but I'll probably do those services in the future as well. Let's see how it goes. So breath work is an amazing tool. But in the daily life, just taking time to see how you feel really, to acknowledge how you feel really, to breathe with that, to be with that, and to stop running away from it, and to see what you're struggling internally. Ask questions. Ask questions. Why am I feeling like this? Who would I be if I wouldn't be struggling with this? What am I still holding on to? What am I running away from? That's a big one. If you meditate for 10 minutes, for example, if you meditate, I don't know, it doesn't have to be 10 minutes. Maybe 9 minutes and 15 seconds is better. So if you meditate for 9 minutes and 15 seconds, you you can ask yourself the question, what am I still running away from? What am I not ready to feel? What are the emotions I have buried under the surface that I am not ready to feel yet? Ask yourself that. Why won't you ask yourself that? Why won't I ask myself? Why won't I ask myself these questions? That could also be a question. So do a little bit of internal work. It's all an internal game. If you want my help on this, I don't have a product yet I'm selling. I'm planning to have a product in the future which I'm going to sell, because I also want to see this as a business. But right now, not yet. I don't have a product yet to sell you. But if you want to book a call with me, if you feel like you want to talk about something you're struggling with, which you maybe never have opened up about in the past, check the link for free, book it, and see how I can help you if that's interesting. Or if you relate to something, like I'm really willing to book calls, but I have a lot of time. I'm sitting here in Mexico, and it would be very good to chat with guys and girls who are watching this. Amazing. Guys, I see you later. This was it for now. Now you know my whole life story, and that's it. I hope this was helpful. I hope you can relate to this, and I really want you to smash that like button down below and turn on the post notifications, and leave a comment. See you in another one. Ciao.